Greetings to all C3RF members and friends across Canada, indeed around the world, and a special welcome to the folks at Veterans for Freedom on their dedicated streaming channels as they view this video summary of the C3RF update for 21 March 2025. The title of this update is Shopworn Narratives, and it kicks off by noting that the term shopworn speaks to an item that has become faded and overused and has lost its value. The sheen has gone from its once lustrous appearance, and its prominent position in the shop window has given way to a newer and shinier object. And so it is with narratives that once had the power to make the world go round, but now stand as albatrosses around the necks of those who once praised them. These narratives have run rampant and unimpeded in Canada over the last decade, with diversity is our strength unquestionably taking a solid position at the front of the pack. If anything, this particular bromide proves the adage, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, as diversity has fallen from grace to become the new pariah. The diversity bandwagon that was announced early in the Liberal government of 2015 was in full swing by 2016. The Liberals would move quickly to prove their virtuous bona fides in the migration game by committing to taking on more than 25,000 Syrian refugees within the first year of their coming into power. The task was complicated by poor planning and saw language difficulties leading to more than half of the working age refugees being unemployed at the end of the first year in country. Undaunted by such complications and motivated by the United Nations Global Compact on Migration, the administration would continue to stuff the country full of migrants whose languages and cultures were at odds with those of the host country. It would not be long before diversity is our strength turned into diversity is our ordeal. It would seem that the ability of diversity to promote national harmony has its limits when it's forced and unconsidered. The importation of droves of migrants from Muslim-majority jurisdictions with no common sense terrorist screening and vetting can be seen to have led to a rising tide of anti-Semitic violence and vandalism in Canadian cities on the heels of the 7 October 2023 massacres. As if this was not bad enough, the need to secure the diversity is our strength narrative, given such obvious breakdowns in social order, necessitates a heavy hand on the speech of Canadians who would dare notice the contradictions. And so we see harsh restrictions on speech through legislation such as Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, in an attempt to curtail related disinformation and hate speech. A development that Canadian author Margaret Atwood would call the letters de cachet all over again. In the end, we see diversity giving us social discombobulation and the loss of civil liberties to boot, a double whammy of the first order. If there ever was a narrative that required aggressive speech legislation to keep it on life support, it has to be the science is settled bromide. Claims of disinformation and hate speech come fast and furious as ruling authorities knock down any attempt to query the science behind vaccines and climate change, to mention just a few. The settled science behind safe and effective Wuhan virus vaccines, for instance, has come under withering attack from the day it was made known that the experimental jabs would not have long-term safety studies in place until some 2 years after their rollout. Those who would query how these products could be determined to be safe and effective in the interim were labeled conspiracy theorists and even pilloried by their Prime Minister as misogynist and racist. The Prime Minister's statements given the findings of the National Citizens Inquiry were based on decidedly shaky science. The vaccine science that was supposed to have been settled continues eroding to this day. Take the latest news that reports on answers received by Conservative MP Kathy Wagenthal. She issued parliamentary questions to the Public Health Agency of Canada on the possible linkages between these very same experimental vaccines and increasing excess mortality rates in Canada. Sure as the grass is green, the data indicated that there were substantial increases in linkages over a sample period of several months in 2022. Now the question becomes, why are these same vaccines still being advertised as safe and effective and even pushed on children and pregnant or breastfeeding women to this very day? And then there is the science associated with climate change. The assertion that CO2 is the Earth's thermometer has been an indisputable piece of settled science for some time now. The fact that this particular piece of science is not so settled is telegraphed by the ad hominem attack that doubters attract when they deign to disagree. Still, and as Julius Ruchel's magnum opus on the subject Plunderers of the Earth chronicles, quote, "It would be much more accurate to say that an array of intricate planetary and interplanetary cycles coupled with man's mismanagement of soils and forests has much more to do with rising CO2 levels than the burning of fossil fuels," unquote. The fact remains, however, that the climate change modeling that has been used in lieu of actual scientific research and data has yet to produce predictions that match real-world outcomes. Indeed, they seem to be less and less accurate as they are refined and improved. Lacking any definitive evidence, the climate change proponents are left to their shop-worn announcements that proclaim wildfires to be proof positive of a world on the verge of a flaming disaster. Suggestions that such events might be more likely attributed to lax forest or water management policies are met with vitriolic invective. The good residents of Ottawa must be confused. If a wildfire indicates climate change is afoot, does their frozen but fantastic skating season on the Rideau Canal Skateway indicate that a global warming reversal has now taken hold? This same loopy logic can be seen to be employed against those who still believe that traditional lifestyles and political stances are worth promoting. They are called far right and presented as an extremist threat. On the domestic scene, we see this dynamic in full force with the fairly newly formed People's Party of Canada, as their Canada First policy prescriptions are deemed to be deeply racist. The accusations seem to be somewhat far-fetched, however, when one reviews the actual PPC platform as detailed on their own website. From protecting Canadians from censorship to doing away with multiculturalism and ending climate alarmism, the policies are decidedly on the side of advancing individual rights and promoting national interests above globalist ones. Perhaps that is at the heart of why they are pilloried so by those of collectivist bent. Indeed, it might just be a coincidence, but it seems as though any set of beliefs that laud the interests of the person or the nation are looked upon as extremist by those who see the need for global solutions. A case in point on the international scene might be the Alternative for Deutschland, or AfD, political party in Germany. Like the PPC, it stresses the need for individual freedoms in a representative democracy that prioritizes the nation over Mother Earth. The identification of the PPC and AfD as far right contrasts sharply with the narrative assigned other more collectivist movements. One cannot help but be struck by the inconsistent treatment of far-right individuals and organizations when compared to their clannish and even violent counterparts. Where the former are lambasted with shop-worn narratives of extremism and racism, the latter are lauded as the oppressed in need of special attention and favors. One case in point might be the treatment afforded groups that mark October 7, 2023 as the beginning of an ongoing period of Islamophobia in Canada. It matters not that the protagonists of that eventful day are committed through their own published covenant of 1988 to, quote, raise the banner of jihad in the face of the oppressors, unquote. Indeed, rather than the issuance of a calming counter-narrative, the government of Canada chooses instead to berate its citizens as racist and Islamophobic if they deign to criticize Palestine or see Sharia law and jihad as anything but benign. The shop-worn narratives just keep on coming. In closing, a reminder to join us at CanadianCitizens.org, where you can see this update in its full glory, including all the links to all of the cited documents. Simply go to the News tab at the top of the page and select C3RF Member Updates from its drop-down menu. Until next time, this is Russ Cooper signing off, wishing you and yours much happiness and freedom from C3RF.